Tony secretly made a pair of Infinity gloves, but when he put all the core stones of the universe in it, Tony and Banner were almost scared to death. Although the Infinity gloves were assembled and completed, the only problem now is who is going to hit this damn ring finger. It is necessary to know that the previous operator has now fallen into the abyss. This time a fat man walked over in an unrecognizable pace, but was stopped by the American team. Although Thor is the only god in the Federation, his current physical condition is not optimistic and has been numb to alcohol for a long time. Tony was really afraid that after he hit a ring finger, all corners of the world were filled with blood and beer. But at this time Thor said, "What do you think is causing fear in my veins right now? She is with me." He saw that he was about to fall into the abyss. Banner from behind stood up and said that he was the only survivor who had power and reason in the field. Besides, most of the energy reflected by the stone was designed by Gamma, so he was definitely the second best choice for this mission. Everyone immediately turned on the defense posture. Tony also made all the doors close on Friday. Then he accompanied Banner to wear the Infinity gloves. The Gamma energy spread to the whole body in an instant and kept swallowing his hand. Fortunately, Banner finally stopped with his strong willpower. Then he kneeled down and hit the deadly ring finger. After the mission, Tony immediately cooled Banner down, and the defense door of the base was automatically opened. Looking at the lively scene outside the window and a phone call from his wife, it was obvious that they had succeeded. However, before everyone was stunned, Banner saw a huge warship and fired several missiles at them. Under the strong firepower, the base of the Federation was suddenly turned into a ruin. It turned out to be a starfish that had been lurking in advance. He sent the exterminator army to the line through the Lianzu tunnel. At this time, the Federation was all trapped in the ruins and the situation was critical. At this time, Banner was in a hurry to contact Banner, and the Gamma accidentally found the Infinity gloves. In order to avoid the chase, the Gamma was desperate and eventually fell on the deck. And the next year, Tony and Soul finally reunited. Looking at the indescribably calm exterminator in front of him, Soul immediately turned into a Bat King. Then, with a flash of lightning, he held the hammer of the Thunder God in his left hand and the Storm Warhammer in his right hand. He even tied a small table wine on his hair. Even if the three giants of Marvel were fully armed, the talented exterminator would not dare to act rashly. But the exterminator said his biggest mistake was that he was too ungrateful, and this time he wanted to eliminate all humans. Then he used the power of the gloves to create a universe without resistance. As soon as this came out, Tony and the others could no longer stand still. They fired a fierce attack on the exterminator from all directions. Then they even cooperated with a wave of supergiant rings. However, the exterminator was not a vegetarian. Soul saw that the attack was useless, so he wanted to use the hammer to strike a wave of supergiant rings. But he picked up Tony and blocked the hammer. At this time, the American team was also hit by the exterminator and couldn't get up. Soul was caught by the exterminator during the fight. Then he pressed the hammer crazily on the wall. He wanted to call back the Storm Warhammer, but he didn't want to be stopped by the exterminator halfway. Seeing that Soul was about to cool down, the hammer of the Thunder God next to him moved. At this time, I just want to say that everyone stand up. Some people seem to be weak, but they have already practiced a set of hammer and shield combination skills. The American team held the hammer in their left hand and the hammer in their right hand. The exterminator had no power to fight back. Then the Thunder God came in turn and showed a wave of supernatural power. But the American team didn't have enough power after all. He was caught by the exterminator and pressed the hammer directly on the ground. Then not only was his thigh stabbed, but also his shoulder was cut into pieces by the exterminator. At this time, the American team was helpless. Even in the face of thousands of exterminator troops, he still stood up and blocked the first line of the battlefield. However, I thought this would be a crushing failure. But at this time, the sound of other Avengers echoed in the captain's ears. Black Panther, Mountain Girl, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, and that man Peter Parker. Countless French troops rushed to the battlefield one after another. The most intense world war in history began. This is the most brutal battle in the history of Marvel. All the Avengers marched in. Whether it was Black Panther, Doctor Strange, or the Green Giant, Little Spider, in order to deal with the exterminator troops, they had to fight with all their might. And the American team also shouted the slogan that made all Marvel fans excited. The Avengers launched a fierce attack at the same time. And the exterminator also ordered that the Dark Star leader rushed out. This powerless war came to an end. Scott hit the enemy's giant sword with a punch. In the battle, the Thunder God and the American team did not forget to exchange weapons. And Tony and Little Pepper came to shoot in all directions. However, in the process of clearing the troops, Tony was accidentally knocked down by the Dark Star. At the critical moment, Little Spider arrived in time. Watching his son standing in front of him alive, he finally couldn't hold it anymore. This blow has carried Tony's self-esteem for many years. However, the reunion on the Star-Lord's side was particularly awkward. Their primary task now is to send the gem back to the original time and space, but the quantum field has been destroyed by the explosion. But the actor is not afraid at all. All he saw was that he took out a car key from his pocket. It turned out that the previous test item was on the side, so he immediately shrank his body with the yellow wind. He passed the battlefield and came to the bread cart. Then the next step is to send the infinite gloves into the quantum field. But at this time, the exterminator has already set up a trap. At the critical moment, the dark storm fell from the sky. He ran crazily after receiving the gloves. The soldiers in front of him were not opponents at all. All the doors released by the armor were cleared. At this time, the exterminator threw out a knife to knock down the dark storm. He wanted to win the chase, but he was unexpectedly knocked down by the flying red female dragon. Wang Da summoned the giant stone to launch an attack. The exterminator released the Iron Mountain to fight with a knife. He aimed at the stone to suppress Wang Da. He thought this would be the end. Unexpectedly, Wang Da's continuous attack broke his weapon directly. After that, he was carried to the sky mercilessly. There was no way. The exterminator could only order the release of the rainstorm. There was a wave of red and white ultimate attack. At this time, the sorcerers used the shield to block the attack. But there was a fire in the back of the dam. The flood was about to destroy the battlefield. The doctor fell from the sky and wiped out the soldiers around him. Then he released the magic and sent all the flood to the sky. But the dark storm that had just escaped did not stop Wang Da. At the critical moment, Wang Da used the spider web to catch the glove. Then he activated the one-hit kill mode. Wang Da was about to be drowned by the monster's corpse. Each team threw a hammer and took him out of the encirclement. After that, under the joint efforts of the little Chili and the female god, he was finally stunned by the fire. At this time, all the Avengers were blown up. Wang Da was about to die, but the fire on his sword was aimed at the grass. A fireball-like creature rushed towards him. It pierced through the whole battlefield in one fell swoop. That's right. The attacker was the strongest captain of the Fulian. He watched his life's hard work fall into the sea. The monster almost cried out, and the captain of the banner suddenly became the next invader. The support was all the female Avengers. Wang Da and the female god were responsible for clearing the huge battlefield above, and Carol went through the crowd. He ran straight to the little train. At this time, the monster still wanted to stop him, but he was blown up by the sudden appearance of the little Chili. He saw that the gold team was about to succeed. The monster was blown up in front of him. Tony wanted to go ahead and grab it, but he was knocked down by the monster's elbow, so he held a double hammer. Even with the help of Thunder Force, he was still no match for the monster. In the end, each team was pressed to the ground and knocked out. The monster was about to hit his finger. The captain of the banner rushed out again and broke his finger. The monster's hammer hit his body. He was frightened to white eyes, and then he was pressed to the ground by Carol. The monster had no choice but to pull out the power gem. Fujua flew Carol out with his left hand. The Fulian was about to fail again. Dr. Faraway reached out a finger at Tony. Tony realized that he was 1 in a million chance, so he rushed forward without saying a word. But he was thrown out by the monster with 100 punches. Now no one can stop him. The monster finally hit his finger. Yes, the gem has been taken by Tony. And at this moment, Tony interpreted what it means to compare a god with a mortal. With Tony's finger, the monster's army turned into ashes. Looking at his own blood-stained belt, the monster could only sit down helplessly. In the end, the smoke disappeared. At this time, Rod came to Tony. Looking at his friends in the west, Rod couldn't believe his own eyes, and the little spider wept bitterly. The mischievous Mr. Faraway, in the end, he sacrificed his life to protect the earth. It's fair to others, but it's not fair to the little pepper. After that, the Fulian took part in Tony's chase. The boat with the soul drifted farther and farther.